Minister, thanks very much, and I think we've had an important discussion here. What's extraordinary about this is that there is now a worldwide recognition that what Israel has been doing has been illegal, unjustifiable, disproportionate, and contrary to all international law. That is a consensus that has grown up in sensible countries. There are, of course, countries, many of whom have a very particular history with Israel, who have not yet come to accept that. But in the context of the International Court of Justice, in the context of what has been said by European Union states, even in some of the utterances from the White House and from American politics, albeit without real concrete action, I think there is a realisation that what is happening here is totally unacceptable and beyond what is in any way reasonable. Minister, I want to actually acknowledge what the government here has done. I think Ireland has been a thought leader on this subject in Europe, particularly. I think the first government really to call out what Israel is doing, and has been followed by Spain and Malta and Belgium and others. I recognise that there are other states within the European Union who, as I say, for particular historical reasons, feel they can't come to the realisation that what's happening is wrong. But I also think that if you look at the reaction of Israel, you can see the desperation with which they're fighting this in the International Court of Opinion. The reaction by them is always zealous. It's always over the top. It always seeks to play, I suppose, ethnicity politics in the context of criticisms of them. Because, of course, if anybody criticises Israel, whether it's legitimate or not, they are an anti-Semite. And that is the standard line that comes from Tel Aviv and from the Israeli embassy here, that if you disagree with Israel, if you criticise them, if you call them out for what they're doing, you're clearly anti-Jewish. Now, I've always distinguished between the State of Israel and the Jewish people. They are different things. And we have lots and lots of Jews living here in Ireland, fewer than we had in the past, who don't agree with what Israel does. The two are not the same. And it is entirely legitimate to criticise Israel and to also have great respect and admiration for the Jewish people. Because what Israel is doing is entirely at variance with what most right-thinking Jews around the world think. And I really reject what Israel has done in terms of its interactions with other states, particularly Ireland. If they claim to be part of the international community, then let's behave like that. Let's behave with a little bit of reason, a little bit of diplomacy, and rather than your first port of call to being to sling mug, actually engage with the issues and accept that there are issues you need to address and questions you need to answer. And other comments have been made in this chamber about specifically the government of Benjamin Netanyahu. I agree with them. It is not a reasonable or right-thinking government. It is a government that is pursuing its own agenda. And that is not to say that there is lots of reason on the Palestinian side. Hamas have behaved appallingly. They have sacrificed their own people, their women and children on the altar of their political ambition. And they have created a situation now, directly or indirectly, where tens of thousands of perfectly innocent children, women, families in Gaza and elsewhere in the occupied territories are suffering for their misstep, their misjudgment, their abuse, their terrorist activity. And let's be absolutely clear about that, because neither side is right here. But what we can all recognise is that the individual civilians, the innocent people in Gaza, who are now being beaten down upon by a massive military aggression, they are not at fault. They have done nothing wrong. And I think it's really important that as an international community, as a member of the international community, we speak truth about what is happening. We don't shy away. And I recognise that there are wider political implications. I see that absolutely. But I also recognise that a quarter of trade that came out of Israel last year went into the European Union. And maybe now is the time for us to think at European Union level that we can actually do something to leverage that significant portion of Israeli trade to force them to behave in a reasonable and lawful way. Because Israel claims to be part of the international community, claims to be a proper, real democratic state, although often if you see the word democratic in the name of a state, it's anything but. But they claim to be part of the international community and functional in that regard, when in fact their attitudes and their actions completely belie that. And yes, this has been appalling since the 7th of October, but it is not new. Israel has been breaking international law for decades, for generations. The settlements in the West Bank and the occupied territories, totally illegal and recognised as such. But Israel has continued to walk in there with impunity and to breach international law. And the reality is, it's that issue with appeasement. If you don't stop them, they keep doing and they keep taking more and more and more. So the question is, when are you actually going to lay down a line and say this far and no further?